I'm going to be switching gears from my usual content for a few weeks to spread harm reduction and awareness on a substance that has truly transformed my life in so many wonderful ways, giving me guidance when I was most stranded, giving me comfort when I was at my lowest, giving me assurance in something when nothing else could, and most importantly, giving me the ability to think outside of the box society lives within, by showing respective travelers realities that simply aren't possible until you've seen them for yourself, which in turn opens doors and pathways to thought and creativity that aren't naturally there. If you haven't guessed, over my 28 years of soul searching, gleaned from an adolescence of trying new things, particularly the things society tells us are bad, just to learn that these things society tells us are bad aren't in fact all that bad at all. One of those things was experimenting with drugs like ecstasy, LSD, magic mushrooms, and DMT, the spirit molecule, or dimethyltryptamine, otherwise known as Ayahuasca, our topic of choice. When I was in university, after having my first mind-opening and boggling experience with DMT, the spirit molecule, I'd made it my mission to learn for myself if this substance is truly a divine connection in some way, shape, or form to the unknown, or if it is just another trick of the universe, a hallucination. At this time, when I was at one of my lowest, actually, the same time I had one of my most profound spiritual experiences with DMT, albeit at the time I just couldn't believe it. The logical thinker in me just couldn't see past the fact that this very well could be just some super complex substance that interacts with our super complex brain in super complex ways. You see, at this time, like many logic-based thinkers, I didn't have enough evidence to believe in something like a god or whatever you may. And I just couldn't believe the effects were anything more than a magical trick of this utterly random universe run by chance and coincidence. And in instances of near-death experiences, I tend to lean towards the idea that it is just the last bit of peace and serenity, sending us off into our blissful state of nothingness. Now, after years of soul searching and trying and failing, a God revealed itself to me in a way that my logic couldn't deny, by making the contrivances in our environment so clear that we are operating on some kind of a script. And I can truly say that there is no doubt in my mind that when pairing various experiences I've had on DMT with my recent experiences with this God, DMT is in fact a connection to some aspect of the guiding force of the universe that is here to be respected as a gift for our benefit, possessing the ability to provide a traveler a connection to some divine aspect of the fabric of space and time, a connection to the omniscient knowledge of the universe and its physics-bending capabilities of separating the higher self from the lower self, of that which is truly mystical and utterly surreal. Alright, now wait a minute. Let's backtrack a minute. What is DMT? DMT is a naturally occurring substance that is found within a multitude of plant and animal species, including humans. Although there is speculation as to where, when, and how DMT is released into our bodies, as far as my studies and experiences have shown me, most of these answers are still greatly unknown. But the most commonly held theories are that it is produced both when we dream and under events of severe stress, such as when we are born, when we die, and when we have traumatic experiences that could be something like severe isolation, that leads to things like paranormal activity. It is the substance that shamanic religions have used for thousands of years, and is even speculated by Dr. Rick Strassman to be the channel by which Yahweh, or Allah, or Brahama could deliver to a given prophet a prophecy, if you believe in such things. In fact, Jesus, believed to be tracked down by a 16th century traveler who wrote a book on the matter, is speculated by this traveler during the years he was apparently missing to be studying Asian religions and cultures. Now, back on track. For those who don't know, The Buddhist belief is that we are made up of two selves. A lower self that is born of flesh and tied to the illusions of the material world, and a higher self that is eternal and unborn with no attachments at all. Thus, for example, where the lower self craves the pleasures of the physical world, the higher self knows only the bliss of the universe. Coming from a seasoned knowledge and understanding of the power the spirit molecule possesses, this couldn't be more true, as the magic possessed within the tea or smoke can enlighten a given seeker on many different fronts. It can show one that which surrounds them, be it light or darkness. It can show one real life HD images, video footage, memories. It can show one complex animations, just like cartoons on a TV, that extend outside of first-person viewing, and really any person viewing at that, which is in fact bizarre beyond telling. All of this and so much more. But only after surrendering control to the whim of the universe will one venture deep inside its knowledge and learn what it believes they most need or are most ready to learn or experience. But relinquish control one must, for in reality we have none. We are puppets given free will, yet built within a scripted, in one sense or another, reality of that which is existential manifestation, driven by intuitions, which is essentially how we are controlled by these divine guiding forces. And this becomes blindingly apparent by choosing to surrender to the insights of the universe at the whim of the spirit molecule. Now, I want to quickly touch upon intentions and expectations, because I believe this topic to be quite important, and it is something I always preach to prospective travelers. Being the short duration of about 3 to 5 minutes when smoked, which is where I have most of my personal experience, and of which personally for me tends to be on the shorter side. Paired with my life's mission to learn this substance's truth, I've probably smoked DMT more than a few hundred times. And though I have certainly had similar experiences, similar themes, similar animations, I have never had the same experience twice. Whilst every single time has the ability to blow your mind equally as the first. The point of this backstory being, jumping in with expectations is counterproductive, but intentions are key, because the universe's lessons and teachings come in the most unsuspecting of ways. And one of the ultimate goals of this segment is to show you this, but I've digressed. Like with everything, making our intentions known to the universe is of the utmost importance for the universe to be able to provide to us what it is we are seeking. So, should you choose to be like me and fight back against what society tells you is wrong, just to learn that these wrong things aren't actually all that wrong, as the myth we live is chocked full of misinformation because of the plethora of charismatic bullshitters with loud voices, no moral compass, and agendas propagating the masses any way that pleases them, that gains them selfish triumph. And your goal is to experiment with DMT. Making your intentions blatantly clear is so very important. For example, why are you seeking the guidance and wisdom of the universe? Are you seeking the comfort of a divine knowledge that you are being watched after and there is a plan? Are you seeking to delve into yourself and learn who you are at a deeper level? Or are you looking for answers to some other questions you aren't sure of? Your intentions could literally be anything, but going into the experience, clearly knowing what it is you seek, which can be a task on its own, one which took me personally 26 years to unlock. And thus, when the universe clearly knows what it is you seek, if the answer is a response the universe is ready to give you, you've still got to be able to decipher the message, which can be a task on its own. Because the universe doesn't speak to us and teach us through the voice of God. It teaches us through the contrivances in our environments, as the contrivances in our environments are the voice of God, as God is all that is. down to every microscopic interaction on a cellular level, every element in the universe, and quite simply any and everything that is a part of existential manifestation. It is all under the control of the ether, the field, the force, the divine matrix, or whatever you may. Thus, the divine consciousness that is the universe, that is God. Ergo, like the universe itself, DMT is a complex substance. And if you think it is just going to speak to you a revelation, although it could, this is generally not the case. Through my experiences, it isn't uncommon for the revelations to come through the user's interaction with their environment, just as much as from the visuals the substance could show them. Again, this is one point I hope to hammer home, because yes, despite the visuals being quite literally in your face, should you be fortunate enough to blast off into the DMT verses, the revelations often aren't. They must be pondered over and deciphered, and most importantly, one must be proficient at trusting their intuitions, whilst possessing a willingness to think outside of the box society puts us in, by accepting what feels right to believe when our intuitions start ringing bells, no matter how outside of the box a belief may seem, which is an invaluable skill, simply being witness to the majesty of all of that which is DMT can teach a prospective traveler. Now, wait a minute. You said visuals. We're talking about psychedelics here. What about bad trips? As far as bad trips are concerned, like Dr. Strassman, the US researcher at the forefront of DMT research, I don't like the word trip, which you'll see is why I choose to use other words. From what I've experienced through my personal experiences and through guiding others and gathering their stories, is that if you are a dark person, DMT will show that to you pretty much immediately. But the reality is, if you are a generally happy person with no dark skeletons hiding in your closet that you haven't confronted, and you are surrounded by positive energy, having a bad experience is really quite rare. Whilst bad, as usual, is a figment of perception. I do find it is important to emphasize most all bad DMT experiences that I've heard of from others are entirely a matter of point of view. What I mean by that is, I've had a few different people, the only bad experiences I can really recall, who claim they returned to a similar experience when they inexorably hopped back on the horse, and the bad aspect became a figment of perception. They said it was how they chose to look at what they were seeing that made it good or bad, enjoyable or scary. Thus, a good rule of thumb, and piggybacking on my more usual content, if you are around someone who generally looks like they're having a bad time and would talk negatively about this substance as a means of sugarcoating why it made them have a bad time, they are very possibly a deceiver in your midst with skeletons they are hiding in their closet. Because if there is something bad and everyone present are truly loving and open-minded people, an experienced traveler, or better yet, a sober sitter, will be able to alter the environment in a manner that the bad all but fades away. Do you see what I mean? At the end of the day, for the most part, scary is a figment of looking at images from strange perceptions that alter time and space. But you're totally safe, particularly when you do it in a safe environment with experienced travelers, whilst an empathetic sober sitter is always recommended. Personally, out of all of my experiences, I can pinpoint maybe 3 with DMT that were notably bad or frightening. But one was rather easily correlated to being around negative, close-minded people. And the other, for one, I was abusing other substances as well as DMT in order to find a sense of peace and happiness in my life, which is when substances tend to bite back. And 2, I was engulfed by multiple entirely superficial and duplicitous hierarchies, including my middle-class family tree, that, free and clear of them now, it has been quite easy to deduce the root of my bad experiences. as well as all of my depression at that. What do you know? But I'm going to touch upon why DMT can be frightening when I unload the motherload of my experiences onto you in next week's segment. Now, to bring this back around, with one of my most recent experiences revolved around ayahuasca, which is ingested rather than smoked, and whose effects I have found to be less potent but longer lasting, about 3 hours. I merely scratched the surface of the levels the universe could show me. No visuals at all. Yet, still, otherworldly revelations did I have. One of which I'm going to use to show you how these revelations can be entirely environmental, and the substance merely being the conduit for the connection. The revelation spawned on me as a friend I had shared the experience with, who has been homeless for many years now, was talking about his history with regards to both the triumphs and the pains of his past that have made him who he is today. This truly touched me in so many ways. How he spoke of all these seemingly insignificant things, probably to most people, that were far from insignificant to him. And it was listening to these little triumphs and hearing the pride in his tone, getting medals in the military, learning how to drive a big rig just to prove he could, and could do it good to his family, and other things like this, that truly warmed my soul. And what shined clear and true as he spoke was that we must learn to find worth in everyone and everything around us. As the sad truth is, presently, it's the people who have the most to offer who are presently being stepped all over by society. The people who have learned the hardest lessons and the hardest truths. The truly strong souls. I guess the point is, DMT shows you the connection, but you don't always need it to learn some of the things it can teach you. Again, it is a conduit to the connection, but we are in fact always connected, just in the reality most humans would consider as normal. What I've found is DMT is a conduit that sparks the feelings, actions, and emotions that elicit a very particular sequence of events, whilst one is in a state of heightened connection. But this happens every minute of every day. DMT just really helps one to see it. My friend Aaron has been stepped on all his life, and he was open to sharing this with me, which was deeply humbling. This is why he is who he is today, embodying spite, reproach, and resentment towards people, coincided possessing an unwavering sense of knowing who he is. But the point being, himself, like billions of others with so much to offer, are constantly being told they're failures, they're weird, they're losers, and they're worthless. Which is what invokes such feelings of reproach and resentment, whilst coincided coming to seek with all of one's heart, as we all deserve to have someone recognize our worth, albeit sadly, oftentimes in the wrong ways in this world owned by darkness. There is worth in everything. If there wasn't, it would not be a part of existential manifestation. Everything was created with a purpose, a reason, a lesson. Even the darkness, that which we clearly still have the most to learn from. Where there is beauty in the most vivacious, lively, and lush rainforest, so too is there beauty in the most dead, barren, and arid deserts. Quite the same, there is great wisdom and knowledge in the downtrodden, equally so, if not more so, than in the triumphant. It's being open to finding and thus accepting the beauty, knowledge, and wisdom being offered, even when it seems to be absent or insignificant from the perspective of our own ignorance and arrogance that makes us wise and enlightened beings. This is the revelation that spawned on me through this experience. Do you see? It came from the universe placing me with a very specific person, to have one of us say something, or both of us, that sparks a revelation in the other or in ourselves, in which my being able to interpret this lesson was entirely based on my understanding of how DMT, how the universe can communicate to us its lessons, which again isn't always through visual animations. For the record, I didn't even blast off this experience. I repeat, I had no visuals outside of the standard DMT euphoria, which isn't a blast off, nor would be simple equalizer-like visuals. This revelation, amidst others, was exactly what I needed to learn at this point in my life. Fulfilled were my intentions and seekings made clear prior to the journey, though of course in ways I would have never imagined, spurred from a conversation that was very specifically supposed to be happening at that exact moment and during this precise spiritually enlightening experience. Carefully written in the script of predestination, I do thoroughly believe it was, which is why I'll leave you with the words as written in my journal. It is finding worth in everyone and everything that is the most important. And if you want to hear about how I launched the Kamehameha wave once while venturing within the DMT verses, by which I mean I almost threw a basketball that had become a massive glowing energy ball within my 3-fingered hand at a 100-inch flat screen, tune in to next week's segment.